Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons and Dragons, and we're going to talk about the Sublime. All right, so let's jump into this. So specifically today, what I want to talk about is that I believe I've been able to find a way to communicate clearly how Dungeons and Dragons on February 7th, 1974, became a delivery system, became the most powerful delivery system for the Sublime to the widest swath of human beings possible at the lowest cost to each participating human. All right. So basically, I believe that Dungeons and Dragons, based on the work that Gary Gygax started, Lorraine Williams continued, and every D&D lead designer has continued since, has created a delivery system for the Sublime for secular humans. And that's why Dungeons and Dragons allows each human who interacts with it, each dungeon master who interacts with it, and each dragon master who interacts with it, to improve themselves, transform themselves, and secure things for themselves. And that's why I believe it is really the most valuable form of human narrative that's ever been created. Far more valuable than the book. All right, like Gutenberg, thank you. You crushed it since the 1500s. Dungeon Masters got it from here. Okay, thanks, bud. All right, let's go. So what exposed this reality element to me? It's the Slate Political Gabfest. Those guys are absolute geniuses. They really are amazing, and they kind of exposed this reality element to me. So let's talk about how. All right, so they have this thing called the Chatter. It's brilliant. They have a show about politics. I'm a big political wonk. I love politics. So I listened to them talk about politics for 45 minutes, and then at the end, they have a section, and this is brilliant, and they're all brilliant. Emily Bazelon, David Plotz, John Dickerson. That's the Slate Political Gabfest. It's them, and basically, they're really incredible. But they have this chatter section where they just talk about whatever they want, right? And so John Dickerson starts talking, and he says, I've been studying this guy named Akira Haraguchi. Okay, Akira Haraguchi. In 2006, Akira Haraguchi, a Japanese gentleman, was able to memorize 100,000 digits of pi, 3.14, right? He knows it to 100,000 digits. Now, what's interesting is many people think that the digits in pi are random, right? I don't think that's true. I think there's a pattern in the digits of pi, which we just found, right? Akira Haraguchi found them. All right, let's talk about it. So Akira Haraguchi wanted to, and by the way, he holds the world record for the most number of pi memorized. Okay, so how did he memorize it? How did he memorize 100,000 digits that previously humans thought had no pattern? Well, what he did was he developed a unique language for himself, and he tells himself a story, a narrative. He actually created his own language, and then he converted these long strings of numbers into stories, many stories, many stories, right? So John Dickerson read 2 paragraphs of his story, right? Like this, of this narrative he tells himself to remember these digits. And what's interesting is David Plotz, who is, so John Dickerson is a Gentile, and Emily Bazelon and David Plotz are Jewish. And so David Plotz went to Harvard, right? And as soon as John Dickerson started this, he's like, oh, this is a waste of time. Memorizing 100,000. What a trivial use of your life. Boy, that's ridiculous. And then by the time John Dickerson read this segment, just a single paragraph from the narrative that Akira Haraguchi says to himself, right? And John Dickerson said, I apologize. Everything I said earlier was wrong. That's sublime. And it is sublime, right? The narrative that Akira Haraguchi says to himself to understand 100,000 digits of pi is sublime. We know that because somebody who went to Harvard said it. If you go to Harvard and you read text or you read prose or you read poetry, you have the chops to say that's sublime, right? And so basically Akira Haraguchi delivered sublimeness to himself by doing this thing, right? That's what Gary did. He made Dungeons and Dragons so unique and so special and said every other, muggle is going to write a book, but you are going to start a story. You as a dungeon master will start the story. The dragon master will continue the story, and both of you will be interrupted by fate itself, the math rocks. And that simple, actually not simple, that profound structure established on February 7th, 1974 by Gary Gygax. That's it. It delivers sublimeness to every dungeon master who plays it today and every dragon master who plays it today. There is one caveat. Many dungeon masters do not realize that what they're reading is sublime. They didn't go to Harvard. They think it's a story about a goblin getting cut in half. The reality is, the story is about us cutting our own deficiencies in half and building relationships beyond friendship with Dungeons and Dragons. Dungeons and Dragons delivers the sublime. It's powerful. It's effective. It's really, Dungeons and Dragons is the best way for a secular person to improve themselves, transform themselves, and secure things for themselves. Nothing you can spend your time on this planet that is secular is going to return a greater dividend, a dividend of sublimeness to you as a human. Nothing. Every single word you just heard is my humble opinion. Nothing more, nothing less. What's important is when you get in the comments and send your traffic. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.